As Devi said, this came actually yesterday morning in meditation. One could say it was restless thoughts, but frankly, I felt, I've got to admit it, more uplifted after thinking about this than I do normally as I leave the meditation. So sometimes these creative, inspirations or surges come, and it's a good idea to ride that wave of inspiration when it arrives, because everything comes from God. And when, in this sense, as Devi has been saying, when two or more of our thoughts are gathered thinking about spiritual things, thinking about anything, Christ consciousness, as you know, is the awareness of God's presence in everything, down to the veriest atom. And so if we're thinking about God's presence, then we're thinking about Christ consciousness. And so when two or three of our thoughts are gathered together like that, Christ consciousness is in the midst of those. And as I say, I was very inspired during the meditation yesterday morning. And even though I had other things to do, and the mind said, oh, you've got a whole week or more to write this down, I felt I'd better catch the wave while it is fresh. So here it is. 3 visitors. The tiny newborn had been crying for so long that Mary feared he was ill. Yet, when she placed her hand on his forehead, she felt no fever. A comforting thought flashed into her mind. He is just frustrated. He has so much to say and share, but his little tongue won't yet obey his commands. So, despite his continued crying, she laid him back in his cradle. After a few minutes, his wails changed suddenly to joyful coos and gurgles. A few moments later, there came a knock on the door. Expecting yet another shepherd, Joseph sighed and rose to see who had come. He was amazed to see 3 dark-skinned strangers, their robes dusty from long travels. "We have come from afar to honor the child," one of them said. In spite of their dust-covered attire, they seemed somehow not of this world, almost as if they were above it. Mary called out, "The child is lifting his little arms toward them expectantly. Let them come to him." The child smiled and cooed as they passed him from one to the next, treating him as tenderly as if they were his parents. After a time, parents and visitors all sat together, talking and laughing quietly. It seemed like they had known each other always. There was an atmosphere of joy, even though the talk soon grew serious. One of the 3, the youngest, and somehow also the oldest, began to talk of the future as if he saw it more clearly than the walls of the shabby stable. "Beware of King Herod, for he is terrified of your child and will seek to kill him. You will have to flee in a few weeks. I will send you a warning in a dream." Another said to Mary, "You must become a healer and learn to help those who are in distress. Here are some precious herbs to aid you in your work. In the future, you will suffer deeply. Don't despair, for through this, you will earn the compassion needed to be a source of comfort and strength to countless people who will turn to you in their hour of need." The third pulled a small purse from his robes, the coins clinking as he set it on the table. "You will find this useful in the months and years ahead," he remarked with a sparkle in his eyes. To the father, their leader said, "Your son will be a great teacher and a healer of men's hearts. When he is just growing out of boyhood, he will insist on going to India to visit us and learn. Your natural tendency will be to hold him back, to think he is too young for such a journey. But you must give him your blessings when that time comes." Suddenly, a large, lustrous pearl appeared in his hand. "On the day of his leaving, give him this and repeat these words. This is a symbol of the pearl of great price. You must return it to the three who visited you at your birth. He will understand the message." From time to time, the child woke and smiled contentedly as they cuddled him and sat him on their laps. His bright little eyes followed the conversation as if he understood everything that was being said and more. When evening fell, the visitors said their goodbyes to the family, blessing each one in turn. The parents wept as they left. Their time together had been so short, and now it felt as if their dearest friends were departing. As the three men walked slowly down the lane, though they held no lantern, Joseph and Mary saw a golden light surrounding them and lighting the path ahead. When they closed the rickety door, they saw the same aura enveloping their tiny babe. Joseph asked Mary, "Did you understand what they meant when they said our son would live forever and bless all nations?" She nodded with a motherly wisdom, for the heart often understands what the mind cannot grasp. Yes, a vision flashed into my mind of a group of people some 2,000 years from now, sitting together, talking and laughing, just as we have this afternoon. Strange though it seems, they were celebrating our son's birthday. Happy Christmas. Nayaswami Jyotish. So, as I was saying, when inspiration comes, don't ignore it. Stay with it. Swami told us that one time, not one time, but he would generally, when he was a monk at SRF during Master's time, he would set his lunch aside and meditate, or he would meditate before going to lunch, have them set it aside. And one time during this meditation, he had a deep, deep meditation, and a great joy came to him. And he stayed with it for a little while, and then he thought, "Oh, this can't leave me. It's just, I know that it's just a part of me." And he rose and went to have his lunch. And he said it was months and months before that level of inspiration came back to him. And he learned a lesson and ruled the hour that the thought came to him, "Oh, it'll come back easily. I can leave and go about my business." So when any uplifting thoughts come, any inspiration, in this case it was a creative inspiration, but it could just as easily be just a feeling of joy or a feeling of happiness or a sense of real connectedness with other people. Don't take it for granted. Don't think, "Oh, this is just one more thing." That's Christ visiting. That's the Christ consciousness coming within. Anything that inspires us and uplifts the mind comes from God. Everything comes from God. But some things are God reminding. and other things are ego enhancing. And so if you want to ignore something, ignore the things that you think are important and make you feel important. They're the things that take your mind down. And those that help you feel connected with others, that where you love others more, or you care, or you want to do some little thing for a person, stay with that, because that's God using you as a channel to bring light into the world. This world is going through a great test right now. We can all feel it, and I don't mean the COVID virus. That's just the catalyst for the test. That's the matrix on which the sewing is being done. The tapestry is being woven on top of that. What's really going on is the consciousness of people is undergoing a change. And it's just like the politics, it's splitting, it's polarizing. And some people during this time are using the events of the day to separate and make them stronger in their sense of separation and self-will and not caring about others and protecting their own. And as it says in the festival, thinking, what else is wisdom if not to keep what is mine for myself? Whether that's your borders or your money or your political or social opinions, that's tendency to keep what is mine for myself polarizes the world. And that will take the world into more and more conflict and darkness. There's no cure and no safety in that kind of thinking, though those who hold the thought think it's wisdom. The only safety and the only thing that will be effective is holding on to the light and holding on to whatever inspiration we feel, whatever sense of God's presence we feel, to hold on to that, to share it with others and to see it in others. And if we can do that, then we will be instruments of there's always the alternating forces of light and dark. I described the forces of dark, but we will be forces, instruments of the light that seeks to unify and knit things together and heal and comfort and care. And that is the Christ consciousness. So when those thoughts come, think of them as the three wise men coming to visit you and to share with you and give you their gifts, because it truly is coming from God. And if we can live in that consciousness, the more that we can live in that consciousness, the happier we will be and the more uplifted we will be. As Devi said, don't take this life for granted either. Just like the joy that came to Swami. You know, the Swami and the Masters have taught us that we have thousands of lives, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, even millions of lives. What life can you even imagine is a better life for being close to God than the one we're leading right now, with a group of compatible people, with a great teaching, with a great master, with the consciousness of the importance of God and inner communion having risen clearly into our minds. It's an extremely blessed life that we have. And I don't mean only those who live here. Anyone who is really making an effort. As Master said, it takes very, 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 very good karma even to want to know God. Well, think of how many varies there are before the karma of wanting to give your life to God, wanting to live with others who are giving their lives to God. It's a rare and precious birth. And when that kind of a birth comes to us, as it has in this lifetime, then it would be foolish to take it for granted and to leave it and go get our lunch. Because if we do that, it may not return for some time again. If, however, we hold on to it and we do our best to share it with others and to use it to, as Devi was saying in her blog, to use the visitation of the Christ consciousness at this time to help us be a little kinder, a little more caring, a little more comforting, then that energy will increase not only in us, not only in the group of us that represent Ananda, but it will help the world far, far more than what we can imagine. Not to think that we're special, but we are special. Anyone who has given their life to God and wants to serve as God's instrument is leading a special life. And for a group of us to be gathered together to do that is a very beautiful thing. And so during this Christmas season when joy and goodwill are a little bit more readily available at our fingertips, let's be grateful for it.